everybody, Lord Tremendous here. Got another battle report here for you. This is battle report number 29. It's a 2,500 point battle. 'Tis I, Lord Tremendous of the Varangur, versus Wukin Panoob, something like that, of the Macedonians and successors, which is a historical army. Yes, this is my usual ogre slash Kingdom of Men opponent, and he put together a historical army, and it's the Macedonians and their successors, apparently. And it's, first of all, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous army, and it is a knockout, drag-out fight. So, without further ado, let's get it on with the report. Here's my list, and there's been some changes from the last report because this one happened about a month later because I'm lazy and slow. Anyway, I still have my king and a chimera because I love him, and he's still Lord Tremendous because I love myself. He's still got brutal, but now I give him the chant of hate instead of the fog because honestly, nobody really shoots at him. And having vicious is really nice. I have a chieftain on a dire fang now, Black Shade. He's got brutal and the staying stone, and I did that because I wanted him to have 10 attacks. I wanted a non-flying king, basically. And then, of course, I still have my Scald, who's got the Warbow of Kaba, because, well, I need inspiring, he's dirt cheap, and I gave him a single shot because I think it's hilarious. I still have my Magus, Elizabeth. She's on her fish mount with Famulus because she's only good with Elite, let's be honest. Drain Life, and I gave her the Inspiring Talisman because people should listen to her. I've still got my Conclave, and they still have Elite. And then I've got a Cavern Dweller because, well, I really like monsters. I've also, of course, still have my Reaver Troop, the True Valdez. Complementing all of that very nicely, in my opinion, are a unit of Mounted Sons of Korgan. It's a regiment with Fury and the Blade of Slashing, because I had 5 points. And then I have a second unit of Mounted Sons of Korgan, also a regiment, with Fury and the Potion of Caterpillar. I really, really like those units. Then I've got a couple of Tundra Wolf troops, because every unit needs chaff, or every army needs chaff anyway. Finishing it up, I got a unit of Sons of Korgan, also in regiment formation, non-mounted, with Fury and the Brew of Haste, because I like them having speed 6. Speed 5's a little slow for my needs. And then I have a Warband Horde with two-handed weapons and the Crystal of Retribution. That's going to do it for my list. I'm going to post my opponent's list, play some music, feel free to pause it whenever you like, see what he took. Alright, here's deployment. And if you look across the table, is that not gorgeous? I mean, talk about rows of pikes and just... I was intimidated. I don't really get intimidated when I play these games. Whether I'm going to win or lose, I really don't care. But... and I looked across the table over there, and I saw the huge amount of models on the table, the elephants, and then his cavalry. I was like, holy crap, what am I going to do here? So I grouped up. As you can see, I did the fear formation. I've got everything in the middle, and then I've got a couple of guys over to the right. I've got my unit of Mounted Sons with Pathfinder in the forest on the right flank there, and my dragon, who's just Chimera, who's just going to try to support them if they require it. I'm willing to sacrifice them if it keeps those two units out of the game long enough. Next to my King and a Chimera, I have my Chieftain on a Dire Fang, Black Shade. Then I've got a unit, my Tundra Wolves, and then right behind them are my Sons of Korgan. If you notice, the Chieftain and the Sons are painted. Well, the unit isn't complete, but the Chieftain is, and he's painted and on the correct base. And the Sons of Korgan, there's a lot of painting. My wife's been doing some great work. I'm really happy about that. Dead in the middle there are my warband with True Valdez Reavers right behind him, and behind them is my Scald, and next to the Scald is my Conclave. To the left there is a second unit of Tundra Wolves with my other mounted sons behind them. Then I've got my Cavern Dweller and Elizabeth holding my left flank, and they're going to try to put some pain on the elephants. Really, I have no idea what I'm about to get into. I don't know how tough they're going to be. I know the internet says historical lists have a hard time against fantasy lists, but if the internet has taught me anything, it's that it doesn't have a fucking clue what it's talking about 9 times out of 10. So, I'm going into this about as blind as I can get. And that's it for deployment. Here's top of 1 after movement, and my opponent got to go first. And he did not go very far forward, because he's got a healthy respect for my awesome models. That or he's baiting me, I'm not really sure which. He comes forward just a little bit across the board with the elephants on the left flank making the furthest jaunt forward, but that's really it. Nothing else happens on his turn, so here's the bottom of 1 after movement. Still quite terrifying. As you can see, I move forward like a man, and kind of baited him a little bit. I've got my shooters kind of in the right placement so that I can do a little bit of damage. I wanted my Conclave to fire on his chaff, but I wanted Elizabeth to start putting as many wounds as she possibly could with Lightning Bolt into the elephants across the way there, because I don't know what they do, but they look like big, monstrous cavalry. I'm sure they do something terrifying. I kind of fan out just a little bit, trying to have a whole bunch of different arcs to charging just in case, because I don't know how much further he's going to come forward next turn, but I want to have all the angles covered just in case. And what the only thing is, on the right side there, my mounted sons in the forest with Pathfinder angled around so that if he goes after my general, my king and a chimera, which would be fine, I can flank charge him and finish him off pretty quick. And that's it for my movement. In the pansy phase, my Conclave takes aim at his archers. He's got a little unit of archers in the middle there, and I think I put 2 wounds on him, which isn't terrible. And then Elizabeth throws a lightning bolt at the pachyderms, doing a couple of wounds to them, which is great. I was hoping for 1, doubled what I was hoping for. I don't care, as long as she's putting wounds on that unit before I have to get into combat with them. The results of all that hard labor were wavering his unit of archers, which is great for 3 reasons. 1, I can't believe it worked. Number 2, it wavers that unit so they can't shoot at me. And number 3, it causes a wonderful traffic jam. And I'm going to be able to hopefully finish that unit off before it can shoot at me anymore or do anything about my chaff. He's still got plenty of other chaff. He's still got a lot of units across the table. But the more I can do to throw him off his game, the better it's going to be. Especially considering I don't know what half of his shit does. Not that he wouldn't tell me, it's just I like surprises. That's all that happened during my turn, so here's top of 2 after movement, and he comes forward a little bit more. Not a ton. Like I said, there's a decent traffic jam due to his archers, but the rest of his chaff comes forward a little bit, and then on the right flank, I made a calculated mistake. I did bring my mounted sons up just enough that he could send one of his cav into. I thought he was going after my king, and then like an idiot, I didn't angle my king so that he could countercharge his cavalry. So my mounted sons got charged by both units of his cav, both of which have Pathfinder, which means my mounted sons are screwed, and I'm the worst player in the world. Kind of kicking myself about that still. So is what it is. I'm a moron. I'm used to it. The rest of his stuff comes up as much as it can. Well, not really. Just like a little bit here and there, mostly his chaff. His elephants actually kind of stay put, which he admitted later was a mistake. But that was really it for his movement. During his pansy phase, his guys have slings, I believe, and they throw a bunch of rocks at my Tundra Wolves, doing a single wound to them. Slings have incredible range, by the way. I'm not sure if that's right or not. Of course, I don't know a whole lot about a sling, so it could be exactly accurate. But anyone on the Mantic historical team, really? Slings have that long a range? That's something else. Wash, rinse, repeat. His other units fire at my other Tundra Wolves, putting 3 wounds on them. Also with long-range slings. My units are fine, and we dive into combat. Needless to say, I am the luckiest SOB on the planet. His combined 2 units are only able to do 9 wounds to me. Holy crap, did I get lucky. I was expecting closer to 19, so this is a blessing. He rolls my nerve check, and he rolls just high enough to waver my unit, which is perfectly fine because they have Fury and could give a shit. I'm going to be disordered, so I'm going to lose Thunder's Charge 2, but I still have Crushing Strength 1, and hope. So before this unit dies, and we both know they're going to die, they might be able to put some wounds on one of these units and help me out a little bit. So that would be great. So, with relief in my heart, here's bottom of 2 after movement, and I finally run out of patience. The Tundra Wolves charge on left and right side there in the center into his skirmishing units. My Warband moves all the way forward, daring something to charge them. The Reavers and the Scald following suit. The Sons of Korrigan move up as far as they can with the Chieftain right next to them, and on the right flank there, my Mounted Sons charge into the unit on the right because, hey, it's one or the other, and Lord Tremendous moves over to breathe hot death on Alexander the Great because, well, I've got nothing else to do because I maneuvered him very poorly. On the left flank there, Elizabeth and the Cavern Dwellers stay right where they're at. I move my Conclave over to fire at the elephants because he hesitated, and I'm going to try to put as many wounds onto him as I can because now, if he moves them forward, I can send my Cavern Dweller in there and hopefully finish him off in one round of combat. And if not, I have no problem with leaving all 3 of those units there until I either shoot them off the table or something else presents itself. Either way, it's a win for me, and that's the end of my movement. During the Pansy phase, the combined shooting of my Conclave and Elizabeth puts 3 more wounds on the elephants. Not a great roll, but that brings their total up to 5, although they're perfectly fine. And then over here, my Dragon breathes hot fire. Does pretty good too. Puts 3 solid wounds on Alexander the Great. Again, not enough to so much as even waver the guy, but enough to let him know that he's going to need a doctor after the fight. We dive into combat, and my knights do really, really well. Single unit was able to put 9 wounds on his cav, which is amazing, I don't even mind telling you. I miss routing the unit by 1 point, but I do waver them, and they aren't like, what's it called? Headstrong or Fury or anything like that, so they're not going to be able to attack. The other unit will be, but the current unit will not. So maybe, just maybe, my knights will survive 1 more turn. I doubt it, but we'll try. In this combat, my Tundra Wolves go crazy and put 4 wounds on the skirmishers. I swear, these guys are like really like Cav, not Chaff. I love them. Again, I miss routing the unit by 1 point. But you know what? I'll take what I can get because they get waved, and hey, that's not bad. The dogs might get a kill this game. My other unit of Tundra Wolves attack the skirmishers they charge and are only able to do 2 wounds. That's more what I'm used to, and in fairness, these dogs took a lot more wounds than the other ones. So, I'm okay with the 2. They're perfectly fine. I back off an inch, and then my knights go on the 3rd unit of skirmishers, putting 13 wounds on them because they aren't some punk-ass dogs. Needless to say, that unit gets popped like a zit, and I back my knights up. I think they only backed up like an inch or 2, though. I just didn't want the Horde Brick to charge me. I have no doubt the little brick will be able to get in, but the big one I didn't want to get in just yet, and I don't believe that's possible now. So, really proud of my knights, as always. With that over, here's top of 3 after movement, and my opponent's a little pissed off. So he comes after me like the devil that he is. On the right flank there, his 1 unit of knights that weren't furied at all charged into the flank of my Mounted Sons, which more or less spells the end for them. We both know it, but they did a hell of a job, so I'm not going to complain. Then, Alexander the Great did not like the halitosis breath from my dragon, and charges my king. I was like, damn, dude's got balls of solid steel. I'm going to try to ring his bell, but hey, we'll see what he does. For all I know, he's about to kill me. In the middle there, his units kind of, again, he's got a traffic jam going on, so he really isn't able to do a whole lot. His unit was wavered. On the right side there, the skirmishers that were fine from the dogs countercharge dogs, and then his regiment of infantry guys charge into my knights to put some damage on him there. On the left flank there, his elephants start coming forward, which means I have 1 more chance to do anything with them, and that's it for movement. During his pansy phase, his elephants have slings as well and fire away at Elizabeth and actually hit the crap out of her, putting 3 wounds on her. She's fine, the piddly crap is over, so we go into combat, and his cav beat the piss out of my Mounted Sons, bringing them up to a total of 17 wounds. Oh, did that suck! He routs that unit, and then we go over to this combat where Alexander the Great puts 3 3 more wounds, puts 3 wounds on my king, answering the 3 from the halitosis breath that he got earlier. Alright, I'm starting to see why they call Alexander great. Lord Tremendous is made from some pretty stern stuff, though. He's not able to hurt or wave me or rout me. He backs up an inch, and he starts rethinking his life choices, I think. In the combat with my warband, his unit of skirmishers was able to swing by, he had another one, and slam into them, and they only do a single wound, though, to my warband, which isn't going to be enough to so much as even waver them, so that's awesome. In the combat with my wounded Tundra Wolves, he puts 2 more wounds on them, bringing their total up to 5, which is starting to flirt with their routing. But instead just wavers them. You know what? They're taking a beating, but they're not routing. I really, really love my Tundra Wolves. His skirmishers back off, and yeah, they're going to get him, but he's really, they're really providing a really nice roadblock right there, which is exactly what their job is. Tundra Wolves are worth every point. In the combat over here, his infantry poke at my knights and are able to find 2 soft spots, leaving 2 wounds on the unit. Not that it was overly necessary, but my opponent likes to mess with me. He rolls snake eyes for the nerve check and backs off an inch. You know, where was that against my knights? The other knights. But it is what it is, and at least I'm not going anywhere. Now that we're both bleeding, here's bottom of 3 after movement. And I'm going in everywhere that I can. Tremendous goes into Alexander the Great to finish him off. My chieftain on a Direfang turns over to help deal with these 2 units of knights on my right flank because I don't want them having a field day in my center. My Cavern Dweller goes forward into the elephants because, well, why not? And Elizabeth moves up to do a little drain life on him, just to put another couple of points on him if she can. In the center, everything that can countercharge does, with the Reavers, the Scald, and the Sons of Corrigan ready for whatever comes afterwards. And my Conclave moves back up onto the hill to fire at the wounded unit of knights. They're going to have cover, but with 9 wounds, I really only need to get a point or 2 in on them and have a really good chance of routing them. That's it for movement. We go into the pansy phase, and Elizabeth knocks it out of the park, does 4 wounds with drain life onto the pachyderms, bringing their total up to 9. All but just clinching that route check in a minute. And, as an added bonus, she's able to heal the 3 wounds that she had on her from earlier. This woman is clean, I don't mind telling you. My Conclave, taking aim at that unit of wounded knights, fires and is able to do 2 wounds to them, bringing their total up to 11, which, again, really good chance they're going to run away. The resulting nerve check leads to that unit routing and getting just ran off the table. Super thrilled that happened because, honestly, I'm hoping with 3 wounds on him I can finish off Alexander here and then turn and get ready to take the knights on with my chieftain and my king. We'll see, but that's my hope. That brings us into combat. My Cavern Dweller gets a full 12 attacks and is able to wound with 6, bringing the total of this unit up to 17, I believe, which is just glorious. It is enough to rout the elephants, and then my Cavern Dweller moves forward like 3 or 4 inches. The idea is he's going to eventually be able to come around the right flank there, or the left flank there, and just hopefully get some good flank charges off on some infantry. In the combat with my remaining unit of knights, they're able to put 5 wounds onto that unit. I think they have phalanx or something like that. I'm not 100%. Maybe I'm -1 to hit them. I'm pretty sure I'm -1 to hit them. Not 100%. But it doesn't really matter. I do 5 wounds to them, and it's not as good as I would have liked to see. It's not enough to even so much as wave the little infantry unit, and I back off an inch, wondering what's going on with my knights. In this combat, my warband is able to put 8 wounds on the little skirmisher unit that dared to put a single wound on them earlier. And they die the cheap dog's death that they deserve. Then we go over to this combat, and the Tundra Wolves, again, just knocking it out of the park, put 6 more wounds on the skirmishers, bringing their total up to 10. The results of which are my dogs surviving, and taking out the unit of skirmishers. Really, really well done. Super love my Tundra Wolves. Yeah, they're probably screwed next turn, but holy crap did they do well. That brings us over this fight, where Alexander the Great tried to take on Lord Tremendous, and he ended up getting knocked down 7 more wounds this turn, bringing his total up to 10. And I don't know if you could tell or not, Lord Tremendous is brutal. Alexander the Great becomes a great snack for my dragon, and then I turn to face his knights because it's like, see what I did to your general? I'm about to do it to you. And Blackshade's over there on his diaphragm going, yeah, me too! Ha ha! That's all I can do. So here's top of 4 after movement, and I haven't taken a fight out of him yet. So his knights are nimble, and he's able to shift them. He's able to see my Sons of Korgan in the flank, and he's able to fit. So he angles himself so that he can shoot past the chieftain, and then since he's nimble, he angles himself again to slam into the Sons of Korgan, charging into their flank, and he was able to fit. Super smart move by my opponent. I did not see that coming. I did not even think that that was a possibility, but it was. And yeah, now my Sons of Korgan are in a lot of trouble. If they don't survive this, they're just screwed. So I'm really hoping that my opponent's dice fail him. In the middle, a whole bunch of stuff, countercharges. His smaller unit of infantry charge into my dogs. Another smaller unit of infantry, I think, charge into my warband. His skirmishers charge back into the dogs that hurt him pretty bad. And his regiment of infantry go back into my knights. His 2 big horde bricks shift around to just deal with whatever makes through all that. And that's it for his movement. With nothing happening in the pansy phase, we go into combat, and I get lucky. History repeats. His infantry is only able to put 2 more wounds through on my knights, which brings them up to 4, which is very manageable for them. He fails to so much as even waver them, he backs off an inch, and I'm hoping to do at least 5 more wounds next turn. In his combat against my dogs in the middle there, he's able to put 6 more wounds on them, which is not sexy. The dogs are probably gone at this point. Yeah, the dogs, they did really well, though. They took a lot of damage. They do rout here, and then he comes up an inch away from my warband. This combat with his infantry here, he's able to put 4 more wounds onto my warband, bringing their total up to 5, which isn't even going to phase him, let's be honest. And then his infantry on my other unit of Tundra Wolves brings their total up to 8, which that's probably going to be enough. I don't even think I have anything inspiring over there anymore. It was very much enough. The Tundra Wolves are routed, and, well, he comes up an inch away from my warband. This is all sorts of bad. In this combat, I got my wish. His dice turned on him bad, and in total, he only did 6 wounds to my Sons of Korgan, which is very manageable, and I have a chieftain right there just in case. So I'm covered, and they get to countercharge next turn, hopefully. Second wish granted, he backs off an inch, and yeah, they're going in next turn. It's happening. That brings us to bottom of 4 after movement, and it's starting to get whittled down over here. The Sons of Korgan countercharge a knights. I turn my chieftain around to look at their rear just in case the Sons just don't have enough to finish him off this turn. I move my king over to breathe hot death on his horde brick to start putting some wounds on him, and he's safely out of charge range, so I should be okay there. The warband countercharges the bigger unit of infantry that charged them last turn. The knights go back into the regiment of infantry that they've been dealing with. The cavern dweller moves up just close enough that it can charge next turn, and Elizabeth moves over so that she can throw some either lightning bolts or drain life onto his skirmishers, and if I can do drain life, I can heal a few wounds off my knights before they have to deal with that horde break up front. The Reavers and Scald move to back up the warband, which is, teetering on the edge, and that's it for movement. In the pansy phase, my dragon breathes hot halitosis all over him, and is only able to do, I think, 5 wounds? Yeah, which is incredible. It's not enough to so much as even waver the unit, but that is a hell of a start. Elizabeth is not in range for drain life, I don't believe, so she lightning bolts the skirmisher unit, and they do have cover, but she's still able to do 2 wounds to him, which is enough to bring him up to 4. The skirmish unit is fine, and then we go into combat. My warband, I do not do well here. I'm at -1 to hit him, so I hit on 5s, and in the end I end up doing a total of 4 wounds to his regiment, which was not what I was hoping to see. They back off an inch, and I sit there and wonder why I keep the warband in the list, to be perfectly honest. In the combat over here, however, the Sons of Korgan light this unit up, doing 12 wounds to them. They're murderers. I don't care what anybody says. That unit of cavalry straight collapses from the amount of damage they just took and routs off the table. The Sons of Korgan change facing to look at the regiment of infantry that they're going to be dealing with soon, and Yeah, they're terrifying. That brings us to top of 5 after movement, and my opponent is far from done with me. On the left side there, he moves that big old horde brick over to meet the Cavern Dweller, saying, "Bring it on, shorty, we don't care, we're not afraid of you at all." His infantry unit countercharges my knights, because why not? I believe his skirmishers and his infantry brick slam into my warband, because honestly they're not a threat. His other small unit of infantry charge into my Sons of Korgan, and his other horde brick on the right side look at the dragon and go, well... And that's it for movement. With the pansy phase pretty much over, we go straight into combat, and his infantry are able to bring my knights up to 5 wounds, which, honestly, I'm pretty sure they can handle, and I'm not too worried about it. Turns out I should have been worried. He was able to waver my unit, but I have Fury, so I'm going to be able to countercharge him, but damn! This is why I put Fury on everything I have, because my opponents roll high, and it would have just completely crippled my entire unit. So, yeah, they're disordered, but they're going to countercharge next turn. In this combat, his Silver Shields and his Skirmishers are able to bring my warband up to 16 wounds. There's a chance. I do have my Scald right there in the bottom left, so I do get a reroll if he's able to rout me on the first try. But, I really didn't want them to blow up yet. They were kind of lackluster this game. I don't get my wish, and they explode. Thank you, Crystal Retribution. What also kind of sucks is he rolls pretty low. I think he rolls 5 hits on the 2d6 for the Retribution, and each unit takes 3 wounds. It stops him from coming forward, getting any closer or anything like that, which is nice, but I may have to rethink this unit. As much as I like the Crystal Pendant, it might be time to rethink not only the warband, but the item choice. In this combat, his little regiment there is only able to bring up my total to 8 wounds, which is amazing. They don't even so much as waver me back off an inch, and they'll be getting their just desserts in just a moment. Here's bottom of 5 after movement, and everything pretty much goes in. The Cavern Dweller charges into the Horde, because why not? The Knights, or I'm sorry, Mounted Sons countercharge the infantry that have been just beating the crap out of each other this entire time. The True Valdez Reaver unit goes into the Skirmishers. My Scald moves in front of his Silver Shields to sacrifice himself so that the Reavers can't get flank charged. My Sons of Korgan countercharge the regiment that charged them. My Chieftain moves into place to kind of, support, and Elizabeth moves up to try to do Drain Life on either the Skirmishers or possibly the Silver Shields just to put some more wounds on them. The Conclave stays right where it's at, and the King on the Chimera runs behind the Horde Brick to put him out of position and to threaten the rest of his army and put him wherever I needed to put him. And that's it for movement. In the Pansy phase, Elizabeth is able to do, Drain Life on the Silver Shields, doing 2 wounds to them and healing 2 wounds off the Sons of Korgan, so that's amazingly good. And then the Conclave takes a couple of pot shots at the Silver Shields, also doing 2 wounds to them. So, I'm just trying to add up the amount of wounds they have so eventually they'll rout. With the foreplay over, we go into combat, and my Cavern Dweller flubs magnificently, doing a single wound to the Horde. The Legion, whatever it is. That really, really sucked. Needless to say, I don't roll boxcars, and the unit's fine. In combat over here, my Mounted Sons finally kind of find their stride and put 5 wounds onto his regiment of troops here, which should be enough to push them over the edge. I believe their total is now like a 12 or something. Unfortunately, I roll like crap, and they stay exactly where they are right now. I back off an inch, and move on to the next fight. What else can I do? The True Valdez Reavers, they're amazing, terrifyingly good. They put 16 wounds onto the Skirmishers, bringing their total up to around 20. The Skirmishers had enough, laid down their lives, and the True Valdez Reavers turned to face the Silver Shields, because they have a bone to pick with them. The Sons of Korgan, not to be outdone, beat the crap out of this regiment of pikemen or whatever, putting 7 wounds on them, which is really good, all things considered. But it's not enough to even waver them, unfortunately. I back off an inch, and we see who wins this Battle of Wills. that was all I could do. So here's top of 6 after movement. We're kind of winding down here, but it's more of the same. Everything that can countercharge does. His horde goes into my cavern dweller. His pikemen go back into my mounted sons. The other ones go into my sons. The silver shields go into my scald, and the horde brick on the right side there, I think, turns to face the king. And that's it for movement. My buddy does not waste time and goes straight into combat. His pikeman horde right here put 5 wounds on my cavern dweller, showing him how fighting is supposed to happen. Luckily for me, 5 wounds isn't enough to so much as waver my guy. He backs off an inch and gives the cavern dweller a second chance at redemption. In this combat, his regiment is able to bring my mounted son back up to 6 wounds, which, thank God for Elizabeth's drained life. But yeah, again, I should be okay here, fingers crossed. He activates his silver shields next and puts 8 wounds on my Scald. Now, this is the Scald that has held off berserkers and monsters in the past, all by his lonesome, for multiple combats. So although he's got 8 wounds and I believe his nerve is an 11-13, he could survive this. He's done it before. No, they kebab this guy like the shank he is and murder him off the field. He doesn't rout, he's obliterated. The Silver Shields, being pretty badass, know what's coming, and they turn to face the true Valdez Reavers. I don't know if that's going to be enough to save them, all things being equal, but at least they'll fight him face to face. His other unit, or little regiment there of pikemen slam back into my sons and bring their total wounds up to 12, which is starting to make me a little nervous. And I was right to be nervous, because he routs them off the table like they were nothing. Really, really hurt to lose that many points this late in the game. We go in the bottom of 6 after movement, and I'm kind of hoping that the game ends after this, because I'm running out of ideas. The Cavern Dweller goes back in, the Mounted Sons go back in, True Valdez Reavers go in, Tremendous charges his little martyr bastard, because I hate those guys. The Chieftain goes in, Elizabeth moves to help out with some drained life, and the Conclave is just going to pot-shot whatever he can pot-shot. That's it for my movement. In the Pansy phase, Elizabeth is able to do a single wound to this regiment with drain life, and since there's nobody around that's hurt, it's just kind of wasted, but I guess 1 wound's better than none. And then we dive into what I'm hoping is the last round of combat. The Cavern Dweller starts us off and does 4 wounds, bringing the total on this friggin' horde brick up to 5, which is pathetic, but yeah, probably sending him into this brick was a mistake. Oh, needless to say, they're perfectly fine. I back off an inch and rethink my life choices. My king, Lord Tremendous, is able to put 6 wounds on the little martyr dude, and yeah, he's gotta die. That's all I care about. With 6 wounds on him and brutal, all I'm able to do is waver this little punk. God, did that suck. The hope was that I would be able to overrun and slam into the flank of this infantry, breaking them, earning me the points of both the character and the unit. But yeah, now I needed to go to turn 7 just so I can hopefully, win the game. Turns out all that worrying was for naught. The Sons of Corrigan, Mounted Sons of Corrigan here, finally find their stride and put 10 more wounds onto this regiment unit. After like 4 rounds of combat, they finally realize they're supposed to put the pointy end in the bad guys. Their total wounds are 22 right now. I finally rout that unit off the table, and then I come forward like 2 or 3 inches just to get closer to Horde Brick and that stupid little character that's been helping him out. Maybe if it goes into turn 7, I can send my Mounted Sons into the Horde Brick and finish them off before they finish off my Cavern Dweller. So, in this combat, my True Valdez Reavers, they must have gotten tired, didn't practice cardio the night before, I'm not really sure, but with 20 attacks, they are able to do 3 wounds to the Silver Shields. Maybe the glare from the shields got in their eyes, I'm not 100% on that one, but only 3 more wounds. Luckily, I've done a lot of wounds with magic and the Conclave and, the Crystal Explosion, so hopefully it's enough, but man, I was hoping for a lot more than that. Lucky for me, the Dice God shine down, the unit routes, and my Reavers, trying to play it off, because, they're pretty cool. They turn to face the character and the Horde Brick, thinking, hey, maybe we'll charge them in turn 7. Who knows? In this combat right here, my Chieftain Blackshade is able to put 5 wounds onto this unit. Not terrible, but not great. I'll take it, though. My chieftain does very well. Thankfully, Brutal and that one wound Elizabeth caused helped push me over the edge, routing the unit, and then the chieftain comes forward 3 or 4 inches to get closer to the horde brick. He's got to keep getting into this fight. If it goes to turn 7, I'm going to lose my king, so he's going to have to capitalize or I'm going to lose this game. Unfortunately, it does go into turn 7, and I'm screwed. This always happens. I never plan for turn 7. Anyway, yeah, his horde break charges into the rear of my king. Wavering that stupid little infantry character was not what I thought was going to happen. I figured that my king would be way, way out of range, but no, not even close. Well within range because that one dude wavered instead of routed. God, that sucks. His other horde brick charges my cavern dweller, and the rest of his stuff just kind of blocks the best it can. That's it for movement. Once again, we go straight into combat, and his horde brick, of course, finds its stride, putting 10 wounds, I believe, onto my cavern dweller, bringing his total up to 15. Oh, dice gods, why do you hate me? It is definitely enough to pop my cavern dweller and earn him some serious points, more or less solidifying his victory. And then this combat, he's able to do 30 wounds. 30 into my king, who shouldn't flippin' be there, but his infantry guy stood his ground. Couldn't frickin' believe it. But it is what it is. So, yeah, 30 wounds later, my king dies, routs, obliterated, murdered, used as a human meat puppet, whatever you want to call him. He won't see the victory party at the end of this game. Oh my god, did this hurt. Damn you, turn 7! So, it's with a heavy heart, I go into bottom of 7, and I do what I can, because, hey, I'm not out of this game yet. My chieftain charges into the mounted character that he's got left, a musician, I think. True Valdez Reavers go into the horde brick. Why not? They aren't going to break, but you know what? They are going to have to go to the infirmary after this. Elizabeth moves up to kind of support them a little bit, and then the mounted sons go into the unit that just thunder crushed my cavern dweller. Nothing else for it. That's it for movement. In the pansy phase, my conclave fires at his martyr guy or whatever, his little infantry dude up front there, putting a couple of wounds on him. Not enough to rout him, but enough to let him know that he was part of the fight. And then Elizabeth hits him up with Drain Life, putting a single wound on him, bringing his total up to 9. Mostly because he's done his martyr prayer on a couple of things. Believe it or not, it's enough to make him rout. And yeah, he flees off the table, earning me a handful of points, which I desperately need right now. With that, we dive into combat, and Blackshade's able to put 9 wounds on his little mounted musician dude, which, I don't know what his break check is, or his nerve checker is, or anything like that, but right now he's basically sitting on 10, because Blackshade has Brutal, so I'm pretty confident I can break this guy. And that confidence is well-founded, because he does rout, and I try to fire my guy forward. It was a fool's errand. He was like 7 or 8 inches away from that horde, but he does move up a few inches, so at least he gets, good seats to the fight. Then the True Valdez Reavers, I don't know what happened, if they got carpal tunnel or what, but all of a sudden they just can't seem to put wounds on bad guys. With 20 attacks, even with Thunder's Charge 2 and Vicious, they're only able to put 5 wounds on this horde brick, which is not going to be enough. They laugh off those wounds. I back off an inch, and just thank God there's not a turn 8. The final combat of the game is my mounted sons into this unit, and they have a really good showing, putting 9 wounds onto this horde brick. I don't know why it took them so long to switch into 3rd gear, but man, now that they're in it, they are just mulching bad guys, and I'm happy about it. In the end, it's just not enough. I think I roll like a 3 for the nerve test, and I back off an inch. Again, thank God there's no turn 8. And that's it. There it is. There's the end of the game. And as you can see, neither of us have a whole lot left on the table. I've got some mounted sons, the True Valdez Reavers, Blackshade, Elizabeth, and my conclave. He's got 2 big units of pike. Well, he's got a big unit of pikemen and whatever the Spartan guys are. Holy crap. crap was this game rough. It was fun, don't get me wrong, but oh my god, I honestly, when I started playing the game, we both looked at it. He's playing a historical list, I'm playing a fantasy list. Everybody that we've talked to, you know, here, there, and everywhere has said that a historical list has a huge handicap playing against a fantasy list because of no flyers, no magic, no breath weapons, yada yada yada. These guys kicked my ass. Let's be honest. They were dead even. And that speaks tons, not only for the Kings of War system, but for the historical game in particular, because even with those negatives, they were still able to hold their own, and it was a hell of a game. But we'll get to the recap in just a second, because this game is over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
So in the end, it was a draw for Lord Tremendous. I ended up getting 1,825 points out of him. He got 1,590 points out of me for a difference of 235, and I needed at least 251 points to get a victory. But you know what? After this battle, I'll happily take a draw. I ended up losing Lord Tremendous, my Scald, my Warband, the Sons of Corrigan unit, both Tundra Wolves, one unit of Mounted Sons, the one with Pathfinder that were over on the right flank there, and my Cavern Dweller. Depressing. So, I really learned a lot about my army in this game. I learned that I love the Chieftain on a Direfang. Blackshade is a badass. He's basically a king on a Chimera without flight or a breath weapon. Really enjoying that. I might swap out the Staying Stone for the Fog, just because he doesn't have individual and he's easier to hit, so I think the Fog might help that. We'll see. I also might drop the Dweller and put in a Devourer or a Jabberwocky. It's just, the Dweller is great and all, but he's a lot of points, and when I flub with him, it hurts my soul. Although it is a shriveled black husk, it still hurts. Loving having 2 units of Mounted Sons on the table. That unit is just my absolute favorite. And to be honest, I'm toying with changing the Warband into the Bloodsworn, like a Horde still, but the Bloodsworn with 2-handed weapons and something other than the Crystal of Retribution, because it makes, having the Retribution Crystal makes me try to lose that unit, and I just can't afford to lose units like that with this army, so I might try something different in the future. I'm still toying with the idea. You know, we kind of touched on this already at the end of the game, but I did not feel like my army was overpowered or at a huge advantage against my opponent's historical list. Everyone we've ever talked to said that, historical lists have a huge disadvantage against fantasy lists, but I'm sorry, this was one hell of a fight. Really enjoyed the look of the army. I was actually intimidated to see it across the table, and honestly, I was a little envious of it. Now, I kind of want to do a Spartan army of my own, like 300, all the shebang, maybe do the weird goat people. It'd be a lot of fun, because this was a really enjoyable army to look at, see it coming across the table, and then actually when we got into combat, it held its own. It really did, and honestly, I thought when I first saw it, because all I know is what I've heard, is, well, my army has this huge advantage. And no, not at all. It was a very solid army, and honestly, it almost beat me. Well, my opponent almost beat me, but solid army. I don't know what y'all are talking about. But as I'm pretty sure you could tell, this was a very exciting game against a very exciting opponent, against a very exciting and intimidating historical army. Honestly, I cannot wait to see it across the table from me again, because I'm looking forward to a rematch. And that'll do it. Battle Report number 29 is officially in the history books. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. And as always, guys, thanks.